still have not received the property, and we've also received kind of very inconsistent direction about what to do and what the next steps are. It's incredibly fear-mongering and scary. I really don't know, what else I can do. It's incredibly frustrating and painful. My goal is and has always been to be with my children in my own home, as I have been my entire life up until 2020. People ask about what was special in 2020, and I offer, exact information about what took place, and it unfortunately for me goes back to 2015. In 2015, I was extorted by a member of law enforcement who is currently running for office in the Republican Party, a seat on the Senate nonetheless, despite the fact that my attorney and I appeared in 2015 and were told that he was no longer going to be working for the city of Chicago. He apparently was let go from the city of Chicago, picked up another job in the suburbs, and is now running as a representative on the Senate. This person tried to take me out on dates and take me to concerts and tried to force me to be social peers with a group of people who engaged in behaviors that I was not comfortable engaging in, nor am I comfortable in discussing. I met my significant other prior to Xavier during that time. He was very familiar with the way things worked in the criminal justice system, and he had lawyers and a trust fund and money and support from his mother and family. I met with the state's attorney. His name was Wayne at that time in 2015. And the courthouse was Skokie, where everything was settled, and there was a deal put into place for him that was reducing his sentence from approximately 12 years, 3 consecutive sentences for 4 years each, to a 3.5. Following that deal, I was told that I was no longer going to have to stay in contact with that detective. He was not going to have a job with Chicago anymore, and I was to stay in contact just with my significant other over the recorded line through the state of Illinois that was monitored. Upon his release from the IDOC in 2019, another part of the deal was that I participate with him in some sort of a reality TV show. You may have heard of it. It's called Love After Lockup. I very reluctantly agreed. I did not want to do the show. I at first was very excited because it's a reality show, and I thought for my career in entertainment it would be incredibly beneficial to get our brand out there. We were working in many different arenas at the time. We were doing content sales, we were doing staffing, we were doing promotions and activations for different brands. We were all over the place with our involvement, fitness involvement, renewable energy involvement, basically any and all opportunities that we could get our hands on, we were taking. So I thought at first that it might be some reasonably devised plan to help us and to get us ahead in life, that we were being rewarded for everything that we were quite literally extorted into being a part of. That wasn't the way that it worked out. The way that it worked out was that I was vilified. I was made out to be some sort of person that I am not, that I have never been. They kind of made it funny and entertaining, when in actuality I was there like crying, desperately begging these people to help me. I was not okay in the involvement of the things that were surrounding me, and I wanted no further contact with a lot of the people who kept on contacting me. The producers knew very, very explicit details of what was taking place, and I was under the impression that all I needed to do was continue doing the next step, and that very soon everything would be normal. There would be no more involvement with, law enforcement or state's attorneys or, reality shows, that we would be permitted to go on with our lives and our family. I had 3 children. I have a 4th now, but that was not what happened. From my place of living, my apartment that I lived in with my 3 children, I began being pushed around, robbed, sexually assaulted, and silenced in a number of ways. I have been recording and documenting this thoroughly on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. There is such an extensive carbon footprint, electronic footprint of everything that has taken place, not just with federal and government systems, but with third-party applications like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc., and so forth. The fact that we are still, 5 years later, nearly, it's been exactly 4 years this June since his 5 years as of this June since his release from the IDOC, and I have spent the majority of these 5 years without a stable home, and not for lack of trying. I went immediately to the subsidized housing, shelter facilities, and 311 and domestic abuse resources and Catholic charities, and I began immediately, as soon as all of this began, giving them all of my information. Following the reality show, and I guess he signed a contract that he knew he had premeditated information that they were planning to scapegoat me in the reality show, and he was going to break up with me. He shot a scene on the reality show without me while I was at home with the kids, making it seem as though he already had broken up with me, but he was still living with me, and we were not broken up. We were very much together. We remained together through November or December of 2019, so 5 or 6 months. I finally moved out in January after calling the parole office and saying, this person is beating me up. He's bringing guns and drugs into the home. I need help. I don't know what to do. I can't get away. He has all of our money in a joint account. He says he'll give me the money to move out, but then he never does. He says, next week I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you next week. I'll give it to you the week after, and he never does. When I would attempt to go to law enforcement, he would disconnect the starter in my car so that I could not get in my vehicle and drive away. I got on the train and went to the courthouse to file EOP. He heard me on my AirPod. I had one AirPod in this ear and the other AirPod was missing. He had stolen it so that when I would use the one AirPod, he could be listening on the other AirPod. So he was listening while I called parole. Parole advised me to go to the court, 555 West Harrison, which there's a whole sort of documentation there of me saying, I need help. This person is beating me up. He's on parole. There's no one checking on him. Please help. Rather than me being assisted in any way, as I said, parole told me there was nothing they could do and recommended that I go to file an EOP. By the time I arrived, because I had to take the train because he had disconnected the starter in my car, by the time I arrived to 555 West Harrison, he was already there and had filed an EOP of his own, inverting all of the allegations that I made against him against me. And in the state of Illinois, once you get an order of protection against someone, they cannot get one against you. So I was screwed over. I tried to return to my apartment, understand that I was living there with my 3 children. That was my only source of residence. That was our residency. That's where we lived. Instead of me being assisted, I was thrown into the street. My children had to subsequently go and live with their fathers, even though I had primary custody of them. And I have literally been fighting for my life ever since. Since that time, I have been sexually assaulted a number of times. I have been robbed a number of times. And when I say robbed, I mean for everything. My bank account has been cleared out a number of times. My vehicle was destroyed mechanically, stolen from me, and then sold unlawfully at auto auction. A brand new Cadillac CTS that I had just paid off. I made my final payment. I had only had it for less than 2 years. Brand new car for me. Paid off the last loan, satisfying the loan requirement through Capital One. Less than 6 months later, the vehicle was stolen from me and stolen at auto auction without my permission. I have gone to law enforcement about all of these things. I was bludgeoned over the head with a tire iron. My head busted open and had to have staples to the back of my head. I've never been in a fist fight in my life. I don't know how to defend myself against things like this. I have no idea. There is no clear etiology or connection for what has caused these things, but I have outlined every single thing that has taken place with time, date, responding officers. I have followed up with the state's attorneys in various counties and towns, law enforcement and detectives from DuPage County, Lake County, Cook County, and several others. I have not been followed up with by anyone. Yet here we are about 1 year ago, I stopped being abused. I met Xavier after my vehicle was stolen and after I was thrown out of my apartment unlawfully. And Xavier literally told me that his brother works for the district attorney in the state of Illinois, and that they knew what was going on with my case. There were tons of allegations that this person was working as an informant and therefore was receiving preferential treatment because of his involvement in deals with the state and the government and the federal government. I don't know the details, but I have a copy in my iCloud of his proffer, so I know that it's true. He signed the deal in Skokie at the Skokie courthouse. And when I presented all of this to law enforcement and to the judges, they literally did nothing for me. One judge, Judge Levander Smith, he helped me by saying that this person's order of protection was not like truthful, and squashing it and letting me go home. And I was so grateful for that. I thought it would be over after that. I filed another emergency order. As soon as he squashed his, I filed mine. And when I went to be heard on my emergency order of protection at 555 West Harrison, I arrived with the paperwork in hand, and I was told by the clerk, your court date has been rescheduled. Someone will call you. I literally stayed there for close to an hour waiting for a manager, which I have all of the names, dates, times, people, places written down in my calendars, as well as saved on my iClouds. No one ever called me to reschedule. When I got home that day, you know who was back in my apartment with law enforcement saying, you need to get out again. So I was unlawfully ejected the second time from my apartment, even though I was the one who had a request for EOP. I have literally called every single resource in existence. Every single one. There is not one that I've not called a number of times. I have an excellent resume and numerous letters of recommendation that I have circulated through area hospitals, private businesses, independent business owners and entrepreneurs. I've also attempted in a number of different ways to get funding for entrepreneurial endeavors of my own, i.e. Shopify stores, drop shipping, direct-to-consumer sales. I'm not bougie. I will go to the city and pay the $200 for a street permit, a vendor's license, and I will stand there outside and make sales each day. I'm intelligent, I'm articulate, I can get the job done. They are not allowing me to do anything. After my car was destroyed, and that judge that I told you guys about, Levander Smith, that is the judge that heard the 48-hour notice after my newborn was taken. So my entire pregnancy, they looked the other way and allowed me to be held in a tent, sexually assaulted, my belongings getting stolen regularly, sleeping through blizzards, through rainstorms. We were out there all winter. We were literally out there all winter, and I was on bed rest from 28 weeks to 40.4. So that means I started to go into premature labor at 28 weeks. Literally. Xavier had to get a wheelchair from St. Joseph's Hospital and literally wheel me to Mariano's to use the restroom each day, because every time I would walk more than like a block, I would begin contracting. Thank God I was able to, as a mother, as an experienced mother who's been pregnant 4 times before, I was able to know what to do to prevent preterm labor to the best of my ability. I kept my son in my body until he was 4 weeks, 4 days. He had absolutely nothing wrong with him at birth. He got a 9 out of 9 on the APGAR score. His name is Weston Mateo Gillespie, and I'm so grateful that he is healthy. I spent the first 3 days with him in my arms, sleeping in my arms or on my body the entire time, breastfeeding, and I still breastfeed to this day. I just have to pump the 4 days that I don't get to see him, which is obscene. Now, you don't think it's weird that the same judge that allowed me to go back home and squashed the original order of protection that you know who got, that was frivolous and a lie, I showed him the videotape and I said, here is a video of so-and-so admitting to beating me up. He says, yes, I beat the fuck out of you. I beat you up because you humiliate me. On the video, I told the judge I don't know how he was able to get an EOP. I at the time was 123 pounds and I'm 5'9". This man was huge muscles, 6'2" or 3. There's no way in a fight that I would win. He's like a professional ninja. He does boxing, he does karate, he does like, what's that stuff called where they like jump around and like suspend their body weight just from their hands? like parkour. He does all of that. I am not like that. Like, I'm a regular mom. I was skinny and tiny. The same judge who squashed his frivolous request for EOP and let me go home on Christmas Eve, is the judge who then heard the emergency 48-hour whatever request to keep my newborn from me. What are the chances of that? You know, and I brought with me all of the proof that said, you know, everything was fine, and that I had been seeing my doctor and following up regularly and all of that, and he still diverted the case. And then the judge that took over the case said, if I discuss details of the case and what's going on in court, that I will be held in contempt. So the only support I have, I'm not being permitted to earn my own income. I'm being held in a shelter that may or may not be closing in the next few weeks. And I'm not being permitted to work or make money. So how would I get a lawyer other than to go to social media and describe what's going on? So I can only say that my son is not with me. I cannot say that where he is or what's going on with that, which I think is a clear violation of my constitutional right to free speech. And not only that, but to parent my child and to explain what's going on in a group setting for the purpose of crowdsourcing and crowdfunding. I need money. If I'm going to hire a lawyer to protect me and to protect my child, I need money to do so. And I'm not being permitted to discuss the details on any of my social platforms or anywhere. So we're 4 months in. My son will be 18 weeks old on Monday. I have complied with every single service that they've ordered. They've ordered a whole bunch of things for me that I do not need. I do not have any history of drug addiction or alcohol addiction at all, ever, never in my life, yet I have to comply with that. I don't have any history of being abusive towards anyone, an elder or a child. I have 7 investigated and closed not guilty cases through the Department of Child and Family Services that have been registered with the state central registrar as harassment, yet I'm still fighting for my innocence. I have been investigated 7 times. Every single time, each individual investigator closes the case and says she's not doing anything. It is filed with the state central registrar that I'm not doing anything wrong. How do I not have any rights in this matter? How do I not have any advocacy in this matter?